a magical nanny with an umbrella, floating down from the clouds to bring joy to two lonely children. Mary Poppins gave us some of the most beautiful moments in movie history. But what if I told you that behind all that Disney magic, there were real people whose lives were filled with sadness, loss, and heartbreak? Today, we're going to take a journey through time to see what happened to the beloved cast of Mary Poppins. Get ready, because this story might break your heart. When Mary Poppins came out in 1964, it was like a dream come true for families everywhere. Children laughed, parents smiled, and everyone believed in magic for a little while. But the real lives of the actors who brought this magic to life were very different from the happy story we saw on screen. Some faced terrible tragedies, others battled serious illnesses, and sadly, many are no longer with us today. Let's start with little Matthew Garber, who played Michael Banks, the mischievous little boy who stole our hearts. Matthew was just 8 years old when he stepped into the role that would make him famous around the world. He had bright eyes, a cheeky smile, and the kind of energy that made you believe he really could have magical adventures with Mary Poppins. Born in London in 1956, Matthew came from a family that loved theater, so acting seemed like a natural fit for him. But Matthew's story took a tragic turn that nobody could have predicted. In 1976, when he was just 20 years old, Matthew decided to take a trip to India. It was supposed to be an adventure, a chance to see the world and experience new things. But during that trip, something terrible happened. Matthew got very sick with hepatitis, a dangerous disease that attacks the liver. Because he was so young and the medical care wasn't what it should have been, the disease got worse and worse. The hepatitis turned into something even more. Mary Poppins made Julie Andrews a household name and earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress. She seemed to have everything going for her. But in 1997, something devastating happened that changed her life forever. Julie had to have surgery to remove some growths on her vocal cords. It was supposed to be a simple procedure, something that would help her voice get even better. But the surgery went wrong, terribly wrong. When Julie woke up, she discovered that her famous voice was gone. The doctors had accidentally damaged her vocal cords so badly that she could barely sing anymore. For someone whose entire life revolved around music and singing, this was like losing a part of her soul. Julie fell into a deep depression. She had to see therapists and counselors to help her cope with the loss of something so important to her identity. Today, Julie Andrews is 90 years old. She's found new ways to share her talents by writing children's books and doing voice acting for animated movies. She's worth about $30 million, but she said many times that no amount of money can replace the voice she lost. Still, when we think of Mary Poppins, we remember that crystal-clear voice floating down from the sky, even though we'll never hear it sing that way again. Glynis Johns played Mrs. Banks, the mother who was always busy with her women's rights activities. She was 41 when she made Mary Poppins, and she brought a special energy to the role. Her voice had a unique, husky quality that made her character feel real and interesting. She sang Sister Suffragette with such passion that you really believed she cared about making the world a better place for women. But Glynis's real life was far from the happy family we saw in the movie. She was born in South Africa in 1923 and went through 4 different marriages. Each one ended in pain and disappointment. But Dick's real life had some very dark chapters. He was born in Missouri in 1925, and by the 1970s, he was struggling with a serious drinking problem. Alcohol took over his life in a way that scared his family and friends. He would lose control, say things he didn't mean, and make decisions that hurt the people he loved. In 1972, he had to go to a special treatment center to get help with his drinking, but the damage to his relationships took years to repair. Dick also smoked cigarettes for many years, which led to him getting lung cancer in 2006. Luckily, the doctors were able to help him beat the cancer, but it was a scary time that reminded him how precious life really is. One of his sons also struggled with drug addiction, which caused Dick a lot of worry and guilt as a father. In 2013, Something incredible and terrifying happened to Dick. He was driving his car on a highway in California when it suddenly caught fire. The flames spread so quickly that he was trapped inside, and it looked like he might not make it out alive. But a stranger stopped their car and pulled Dick to safety just in time. His car was completely destroyed, but Dick survived with only minor injuries. He said later that it felt like he had been given a second chance at life. Today, Dick Van Dyke is 100 years old and still alive, which makes him one of the few surviving members of the Mary Poppins cast. He's worth about $50 million, but more importantly, he's found peace in his later years. He overcame his addiction, survived cancer, and learned to appreciate every day he has left. When we watch him dance across those rooftops in Mary Poppins, we're seeing someone who truly understood both joy and sorrow. David Tomlinson played Mr. Banks, the strict father who learns to open his heart to his children. He was 47 when he made the movie, and he did such a good job showing. Karen Dautrice played Jane Banks, Michael's older sister, and the more sensible of the two children. She was only 9 years old when she made Mary Poppins, and her bright smile and natural acting ability made audiences fall in love with her immediately. She and Matthew Garber had wonderful chemistry on screen, making it easy to believe they were really brother and sister. But growing up as a child star wasn't easy for Karen. She was born in 1955 in the Channel Islands, and while Mary Poppins made her famous around the world, she struggled with the pressure and attention that came with being a celebrity. As she got older, she became more and more uncomfortable with fame and decided she wanted a normal life instead of a life in the spotlight. Karen's adult life had its share of heartbreak too. Her first marriage to actor Alex Hyde White ended in divorce when she discovered he had been unfaithful to her. She was left to raise their child as a single mother, which was both emotionally and financially difficult. The pain of betrayal and the stress of being alone made her want to stay even further away from Hollywood. By the 1980s, Karen had made the decision to leave acting completely. She wanted to focus on being a mother and living a quiet, private life. Today, she's 70 years old and married to her second husband, Ned Nally. She's worth about $1 million, mostly from her work in Disney movies and some voice acting she did later in life. While she may not be famous anymore, people who grew up watching Mary Poppins will always remember her as the sweet little girl who went on magical adventures with the world's most famous nanny. Ed Wynn played Uncle Albert, the funny old man who laughed so hard he floated up to the ceiling. He was 78 years old when he made Mary Poppins, and his scene was one of the most memorable parts of the whole movie, his giggly. As we look back at all these stories, it's hard not to feel sad about how much pain and suffering these talented people went through. Mary Poppins brought joy to millions of families around the world, but the actors who created that joy often struggled with loneliness, illness, addiction, and loss in their own lives. The movie taught us that a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, but for many of these actors, no amount of sweetness could make their real-life problems easier to handle. Matthew Garber died when he was barely an adult, his life cut short by illness when he should have been just starting to explore all the possibilities the world had to offer. Julie Andrews lost the voice that defined her entire identity, forcing her to rebuild her sense of self from the ground up. Glynis Johns endured 4 failed marriages and the devastating loss of her only child, spending her final years alone in a nursing home. Dick Van Dyke battled alcoholism and nearly died in a car fire, but somehow found the strength to overcome his demons and live to be 100 years old. David Tomlinson carried the trauma of his first wife's murder-suicide for his entire life and ended his days unable to speak or move properly after a stroke. These stories remind us that the people we see on movie screens are real human beings with real problems, real pain, and real struggles. They're not just characters in a story. They're mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, people who laugh and cry and hurt just like the rest of us. When we watch Mary Poppins today, we can still enjoy the magic and the music and the joy it brings. But we can also remember the real people who gave their talent, their time, and sometimes their health to create something beautiful for us to enjoy. The legacy of Mary Poppins lives on, not just in the movie itself, but in the way it reminds us to look for magi,